Hello everyone, welcome back to A Boring Revolution, your number one news source for everything in regards to the Boring Company. Welcome everyone, it's great to see you. I thought, you know what, let's have a chat about this not a boring competition. As you can see, I had my beautiful head fixed. I haven't had my haircut for 5 months, got it fixed today. I thought, you know what, let's do a live stream, let's have a chat about this wonderful competition, and I'll tell you my honest thoughts. So, this is a phenomenal idea. I think this is a really great way of getting people that are not so necessarily interested in tunnels into the industry. Because you get a lot of people, a lot of engineers, civil engineers, construction managers, those sort of people who go through university and tunneling is barely talked about. I'm thinking about my own time at university where literally over the course of 3 years I maybe sat in maybe 2 to 3 lectures where we actually talked about TBMs and tunneling, and it's such a great shame because it's such an underappreciated industry and it's such a vital industry. When you think of all the major cities in the US, in Europe, literally 99% of them have tunnels. Tunnels are essential to the working of any city. And the best way to get people interested in tunneling is to actually physically show them how it's done, how the actual process works of boring a tunnel, and actual use cases for those tunnels. And this competition is absolutely brilliant. I've always been a really big fan of the Hyperloop competition that they've been running. And I think that has just been absolutely fantastic for mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and all the other various people that are required to build Hyperloop pod. And I think this could be equally, if not more, influential for the Boring Company and Elon Musk. I think that it's just a great idea, and it's not insanely difficult to bore a tunnel, but to bore a tunnel quickly and efficiently and to line it up, to center it correctly, that is the difficult bit. That requires a bit of skill, a bit of foresight, a bit more technical understanding of what exactly you need to do. Yeah? So I would have absolutely loved to have been in a competition like this when I was at university. It's such a great idea. So it's a 30-meter tunnel with a cross section of 0.2 square meters, and there's prizes for the fastest to complete the tunnel, the fastest to complete the tunnel and the driving surface, and the most accurate guidance system. So it's great. It's really great because it just reaffirms how serious Elon Musk is about the Boring Company if he's willing to set something up like this, because this is not cheap to set all this up, because you're going to have to do a lot of work prior to the teams even showing up. How are they going to do it? I imagine they'll have 2 trenches exactly 30 meters apart, and they'll put the teams in the trenches, maybe either side. It would be quite interesting. And then they have to bore through to the other side. What is being said in the news? Well, this is probably the best article I found from Tech Explorist. Elon Musk is a man of all trades when it comes to technology. Whilst the eccentric billionaire wants to revolutionise road traffic with his Tesla electric cars and colonise Mars, he's working on the expansion of tunnel infrastructure with his company, the Boring Company. The company has a goal to build the tunnel infrastructure necessary to enable fast, safe and comfortable transportation, including loop and hyperloop. According to Musk, tunnels will form the world's most important transportation infrastructure in the future. For this purpose, the company has launched a contest called Not a Boring Competition that challenges teams to come up with the fastest tunnel digging solution that can beat the Snail. Again, quite a similar article from Futurism. It is a bit of a strange article, this one, I must admit. the fun, I wasn't going to show you this, but I thought I would because it made me laugh. It says So far, the company has shown off technology that could cut down the time and cost of digging tunnels for such a system considerably, but demand has been sluggish, which is quite ironic, really. When you consider all the projects that have been proposed, the company is only working on a handful of projects right now. It can't exactly work on more than 1 or 2 projects at any one time, including a tunnel system that connects various parts of the Las Vegas Convention Center. Interesting. So, before I start going to your questions, how could you do this? So, this is probably beyond my area of expertise because you're going to actually have to build a machine. And as much as I love building things, I am not a machine builder. But there's obviously 3 key ways you could work this. Number 1, you could go for the traditional method. So, in one sense, you are jacking the machine forward or pushing it through the actual opening that you've made. And that's more of the traditional method. So you might have some kind of structure that you build that you then jack the machine forward off that structure. Option number 2 is you use some kind of gripper shoes inside the actual tunnel. That would actually be a lot more difficult. But essentially you have gripper shoes that come out and they are in contact with the external perimeter of the tunnel lining, and then you push off the tunnel lining, and then you close the shoes, push forward, close, push. A third option that probably a lot of people haven't thought about is actually drilling a pilot hole. So we're talking like a 3-inch pilot hole, maybe smaller. Once that pilot hole has gone through to the other side and you know it's lining up correctly, you could then pull through a steel cable, and then you could actually pull the TBM from the other trench through the strata, and that actually might be the faster solution, in my opinion. However, it's up to the teams. What's interesting about this is that we're going to get 30, 40, maybe even 50 teams who come up with some absolutely crazy, strange, inventive ways of doing it. And that is what interests me the most. I'm not actually too interested about who finishes first. I'm more interested in the machine that kind of just absolutely throws the rule book out of the window and actually performs well on the day. It doesn't necessarily need to win for me. It needs to do something that I've never seen before. I really hope I can go and watch it, actually. I'm not sure where it's going to be, if it's in Las Vegas or it's going to be at Hawthorne. I imagine it's going to be in Las Vegas. So you've got to fill in this form. That's an interesting question. Answers in the comments below. What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? I reckon Elon wrote that himself. Anyway, let's go to the questions and see what people are saying. Feel free to ask me whatever you want. I'm happy to answer any questions. Hello, Josh. Nice to see you doing well in Chicago. What a shame that we're not... what a shame that The Boring Company is not building its project in Chicago, as I've got to say now. Hello, Joshua. Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me. We're going for 5k next. I'm going to try and get to 5k before November. That's my target. Exactly. It is just practice for Mars. I have an interesting idea of how they could use tunnels on Mars, which I'm going to cover in a video at some point. No, but yes. Oh, you got... Should I pitch you an idea right now, Chelsea? So I have an idea that I've been thinking about for quite a while. And it's about using tunnels to divert water away from rivers that are overflowing. And the idea is that you take that water to somewhere reasonably nearby and flood that area, rather than it going into a town or a village somewhere and flooding everyone's homes. And there's a particular river in the UK that I want to do a project on called the River Severn, which is very prone to bursting its banks, and that's my idea. But I have worked, I don't know if I've told you this before, but I have worked in the water industry. I worked for a very large contractor, used to be the third largest contractor in the UK, and sort of my background is in the water industry. So I think in terms of moving water from where it's in as a high supply of water to where it's in high demand, there's definitely potential for that with the Boring Company if they can reduce the cost of tunnelling below $5.5 million per mile. Definitely. Yeah. It's a good question. So I was reading an article on the Tunnelling Journal. Where was this project? It was in Switzerland, this project. And what interested me the most was that this TBM went through an area that was very, very hard rock. So they were using like a main beam TBM. And then they got through to an area where it was, the actual geology was changing significantly. And they actually modified that TBM so it became an EPB, Earth Pressure Balance TBM, and I found that very interesting. The most important thing for digging tunnels is you've got to build that TBM specific to the geology that you're going through, because one TBM might be brilliant in Chicago but absolutely useless in Florida. You might be getting 50 meters per day, you might only be getting 3 meters per day in Florida, if you know what I'm saying. Great question, that one. Excellent question, Josh. Thank you. Hi, Andrew. Hope you're well, my friend. Thank you so much. It really like perks me up when I hear really like kind of positive and friendly comments. I really, that's why I enjoy doing this channel, and it's so nice to get an understanding of why you all like the Boring Company and want it to succeed. That's really great. Why aren't explosives used much? It's kind of fairly obvious why explosives are not used. Explosives are very good, but you really need to be a specialist to use explosives, and it's not guaranteed that when you press that button that you're going to get the result that you think you're going to get. I know in Brazil they use an absolute ton of explosives after the tunnel has been bored. So after the tunnel has been bored for, say, a reservoir, some kind of water project, they then widen and deepen the tunnel using explosives. And that's a very good use case for that. But again, it's incredibly dangerous, very specialised area. For me personally, I have really like zero understanding of explosion and that kind of industry, so I can't really comment. But it's interesting. There is a company that is using projectiles to bore tunnels, and I am going to cover them in a future video. And I think it's very, very interesting. They use very, very high speed projectiles, and they launch them, and that kind of breaks apart the rock. They do that thousands and thousands of times, which is very interesting actually. And I need to do that video next week, or maybe a couple of weeks time. Makes me wonder about the time scale of the competition. Is this like 2 weeks of drilling based on current speeds? Yes. So even the current TBM that was working in Las Vegas, so Linestorm, that was averaging somewhere in the region of 26.5 to 27.8 meters per day. So even for that machine, it would have been sort of a day and a quarter. I think with the actual cross section being quite small, Thaddeus, I'd imagine that it would be a lot quicker. But obviously these are homemade TBMs, so I mean I think we're expecting quite a lot if we think they can bust that out in a day. But I mean, that might be the fun of it, that maybe it takes 1 to 2 days for each team to do their thing. And they've got to build the road deck as well inside the tunnel. So how are they going to do that? Are they going to cast concrete in there? Are they going to use precast concrete segments? What stops them from using blocks of wood? I mean, you can drive a car on it. What stops you using blocks of wood and then maybe using some kind of post-tensioning system inside the blocks of wood so you can really tighten it up and get like a firm road deck? You know, there's millions of ways. You know, there's hundreds of ways to skin a cat, as they say, but there's usually only a couple of ways that actually work efficiently. Yeah, you've kind of given you the answer in your question there, Josh. Good question. Geology is very, very varied, incredibly varied, and in some situations, explosives are very good if you've got incredibly high, high density rock. But if you're in an area with lots of fractures, maybe there's pockets of water here and there, you've got to be very, very specialised to do that and do that safely and effectively, because it only takes one mistake and really, you've really postponed the job quite considerably. Yeah, actually guiding a TBM is a lot more difficult than you would think it would be. Hence why I think it might be a good idea to do a pilot hole. That's kind of at the moment, that's kind of my thinking. You know what I'd love to do? I'd love to speak to some people who are actually taking part in this competition, maybe get them on the channel, and then we can all ask them some questions, and obviously I can learn a bit as well, and they can tell us how they think it's going to go, which would be quite interesting. Canadian Bernie Bro. Wow, that's amazing. I love that. Bernie Sanders. Seal the end of a short tunnel and fill it with compressed air using solar, and when the grid needs it, you use the air to turn a turbo. Yeah, I've seen they do that in Austria, I think, with compressed air, which is quite useful. So that again is another use case for an actual boring company tunnel. It is like a power storage device. Because you could get a lot. Imagine if you could get 10 bar pressure in a tunnel, or even 8 bar pressure, and then you could release that through a turbine, a big long tunnel, like 2 or 3 miles. That is an incredible amount of air that you could push through a turbine. Just a bit of car, so I was thinking that tunnel. Yeah, so it's. I imagine it'll just be some kind of toy car. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe like a 1:14 scale model. It's a shame they've not told us a bit more information. Hey, how are you doing, Cormac? Nice to see you in the chat. I have come to the end of all the questions, guys. Thank you so much for all your questions. In terms of best question today, I think Josh came up with some cracking questions. Thank you so much, Josh, for joining us on the live stream. Great questions. And it's great to see Andrew as well on the live stream. Brilliant. Any more questions before I go? We're getting up to 20 minutes, which is getting a little bit long. So I think I'm going to call it a day. What are your honest thoughts on the competition? Do you think that they will fill the competition? Do you think they'll struggle to find people? What are your honest thoughts? Yeah, not... It might be. I mean, I think in my mind, Thaddeus, I've just got this idea of someone pulling a piece of string through the tunnel and pulling a car through. Well, it should be an actual miniature version of the Model Y, and they have to drive it through. And if it doesn't get through to the other end of the tunnel, it's a fail. That should be the rule. Instant disqualification. But yeah, I think that's good. All right, guys. I think we're done for today. Yes. So I was just talking about the hypersciences, Cormac. So I want to do a video on hypersciences because they've got this kind of railgun type boring machine where they launch a metal projectile into the rock at very, very high speeds, really high speeds. And then they do that thousands of times until they've made the opening. I think that is a really interesting way of boring a tunnel. I think in certain conditions, that would be better than a TBM. The keyword being certain conditions. Elon will turn a snail into an earthworm. I think an earthworm's a lot faster than a snail underground. I don't know. Maybe. Alright guys, thank you for joining us on the live stream. Appreciate you all and your wonderful questions. And hopefully see you on the next live stream. Please put your comments below. Tell us what you think. Like the video and come and join us on Discord. Thank you very much. And remember guys, don't be bored.